What's up, guys? So one of the questions I get all the time is, what is the difference between a Steeze and a Puffy Steeze? I don't know if a bigger distinction has been made out of the smaller difference in a boat ever. You know, not that long ago, the same question was being asked about Liquid Logic boat, the Brat, but let's break this down. So in the same way that in Liquid Logic land, when you say party, what you mean is you took some volume out of the stern. In Waka land, when they say Puffy, all they really mean is they added a couple gallons. Essentially what that does is it takes the stern, and whereas there's a slightly concave shape, they make it a slightly convex shape. So instead of cupping water, it now very barely sheds water. That's it. It's a very subtle, very minor difference. What does that really do? Well, you know, it takes some of the spunk out of the boat. It makes it a little more reliable. It doesn't stand up on its own as much. It makes it a little faster because there's less water wrapping over the deck and creating drag. But really, it just makes it more of a river runner and kind of less of a, let's say, southeasty style boat where you want to stand your stern up. Not a ton of people are standing up the stern on the Steeze anyway, so for many people it's not a big loss. That being said, a lot of people are making a huge deal out of, oh my god, I need a Puffy this or not a Puffy that. So let's go into the garage and just show you what it takes to make one of these a Puffy or not. Alright, so we put about a month on the Steeze. This is actually a really old Steeze, one of the first ones. It has been put through hell, which sort of makes it a perfect candidate to just go ahead and Puffy it. Puffy Steeze has become by far what people are craving and asking for, which is, as a Waka dealer, kind of funny because they're almost the same boat. They perform differently, but they're almost the same boat. So one of the toughest things is having people call up being like, I really want a Puffy Steeze. I will not take anything else. When, like, really? If you just get a Steeze and puff it yourself, you can have both boats. I'm going to show you what it takes. It's not much, and I'm going to explain to you the whole difference. So when you look at the tail of the Steeze, the original Steeze, you can see that this part dips in. On the Puffy Steeze, all they have done is add enough to flatten that out. This is something that you can do yourself with an Allen key and a little bit of extra foam. The spec difference on the website between the Steeze and the Puffy Steeze is 20 liters, that's about 5 gallons, or 0.7 cubic feet. Way less than you would think. So if I take this cube and drop it on the stern, that's more volume than what's in the Puffy Steeze. So put differently, here's a straight bar going across. The absolute longest point between there is 2 7/8 inches. Let's pull the rear pillar and pop in some volume. Alright, so that took literally 2.5 minutes to remove 3 screws and yank out the rear pillar. What we're going to do now is basically choose the shape of our boat going forward. You can see that the curve of the boat matches the curve of the pillar. What we want to do is bring this pretty much to flat. So all that means is I'm going to go grab a scrap of foam and just bring it to flat. If I'm real smart, I'll find one that's already flat, overlay, trace, and then glue together. And then I'm done. This is what I mean by overlay and trace. Does not have to be absolutely perfect, just has to be close enough. That is really the difference between a Puffy and a non-Puffy. It's only a couple inches. So that'll add the volume I need. All I'm going to do now is trace and cut. There's our new pillar. I like using a little bit of tape on the leading edge as I slide in. It just reduces friction, doesn't let anything catch, and gets everything in place a little smoother. Not necessary, but I tend to work fast, so rather than waiting for glue to dry, I usually just do this. There you go. Total project time, 10 minutes. Lowest point is now just at 2 inches. That's how easy it is to puff a Steeze. If I wanted to unpuff it, I would pull it apart, put it back together again, leave it out for a hot day, and go right back. So if you're going to buy one of these, think about the Steeze. It might be a better deal than the Puffy. So that's it. A little bit of foam is really the difference between these two boats. It makes a subtle amount of change in the way that the boat paddles. It does make it basically, you know, I would say more reliable, more of a kind of just go fast boat versus a play kind of focused boat, but it is still 95% the same boat. So you got one, not the other. Don't stress it, get a little foam. It is still 95% the same boat. No two ways around that. But you do take out kind of some of the stern, popping playfulness of the original Steeze, and you replace that with go fast, go flat. They both still have the skip. They both still have a lot of the same characteristics. I would say that especially if you're light in the boat, the Puffy is actually probably going to help you more because it's going to keep it down more versus getting yeeted. Now you know what the difference is. You know how to change one to the other. And honestly, given the choice, I'm probably going to take a normal Steeze and puff it when I want to and unpuff it the rest of the time. That's just me. Oh, and by the way, if you're like waiting for a puffy goat, see what I'm saying?